defensive side, and I just feel like we might have not been prepared, for a running quarterback because like we've been seeing a guy like Aaron, all camp where he's not really using his legs to try to beat us, and then the first game of the year you come out here against a guy that can run a 4.4, it just adds a little bit more to the game. And
Bruh. Big Deke news. Steeler fans, forgive Juan Thornhill for that statement because I don't even think he realized what he just said right there. Someone needs to give Juan a history lesson of these Steeler teams over the last 7-8 years. Because you can't say that word, unprepared. You can't. We're scarred. Absolutely scarred. From the playoff losses, the Tomlin losses, the letdown games, the games where we're getting blown out at halftime and it's over, and fans and media are watching the game and are saying to ourselves, this team looks unprepared. This team looks lackadaisical. This team looks like it has no effort, doesn't even want to be out there. You can't say that. So you just can't say we were unprepared. I don't think he meant it that way. I mean, you saw the smile on his face. I think he thought he was just being upfront. But we're scarred, man. We're scarred over these last 7-8 seasons. And this Steelers team looking way too unprepared for moments and big moments. And it's 2025 with the new additions, the new culture. You're thinking we're turning over a new leaf. It's a new era. No more of that. That's in the past. But then it's week 1 of 2025, and after the game, Juan Thornhill's saying stuff like this, and you're just like, no, just anything, but don't say that. And then you look at actually what happened with the defense against Justin Fields and the Jets. Kind of did look unprepared. They kind of did look lackadaisical. They kind of did look like they were lacking effort. So to say unprepared, it's like, man, I guess we'll give it a pass though, because there's a little caveat here. It's week 1, so naturally there's going to be some unpreparedness going into a week 1 game, particularly against the Jets with Fields and a whole new offensive coordinator. But at the same time, don't we face another running quarterback 2 times a year in Lamar Jackson? And haven't we done a pretty damn good job against Lamar Jackson when we've faced him? Like if you just look historically, last couple games, not so much, but that there was some sort of preparedness there for a quarterback that's going to use his legs. Where was it here with Justin Fields? Did we just maybe think that the Jets weren't going to do read options? They weren't going to utilize Justin Fields' running ability? Because if that's the case, then that's just coaching malpractice. Maybe it's because we didn't utilize Fields the way that the Jets did, and we're only familiar with Fields in the way that he was in the Steelers system, which was limited and too conservative, whereas the Jets actually tailored something towards Fields and unleashed him, and Fields played good. So that surprised us. But again, that would go hand in hand with coaching malpractice, right? Just not the best quote. Definitely not the best quote. And because I'm not really buying the Rodgers excuse then either. Because what do you think we've done in the past with facing Lamar Jackson, right? We didn't have mobile quarterbacks whenever we were going up against Lamar Jackson. So, can't you get creative, do stuff with the scout team, bring up a safety to do quarterback and do certain reps to give you certain looks? So, we could have done that, right? I don't know. It's not something to look into too deeply. Again, there's always going to be a certain amount of unpreparedness that week 1 has to offer. I just feel like we're scarred from some of these Steeler teams over the last 7-8 seasons of being and looking unprepared out there. And 2025 is supposed to have this new look, new vibe to it. And to hear it, it's just like, no, man. No, I thought this was a new leaf. I thought those days were over. Now, I think week 2 is going to be a really good opportunity for the defense to get back on track and not look like what it was in week 1, because I like our matchup a lot better against the Seahawks than the Jets, as surprising as that sounds. I don't think I would have said that heading into week 1, but after seeing what the Jets look like and after seeing what the Seahawks look like, I think our defense is going to have an easier time against Sam Darnold and that Seahawks offense. But switching to the next topic, Tyreek Hill and Steelers trade rumors. We got more information regarding that from Mike Florio, and he was the one that dropped the initial rumors in an article, but he went on 93.7 The Fan and elaborated even further on it.
Yeah, I was convinced he's on track to be this year's Devontae Adams, and I had heard the Steelers and the Chiefs, and I'll give you a little nugget that made the Steelers chatter a little more interesting to me. The same guy who told me that Jalen Ramsey was going to be a Steeler right when the first talk emerged of the Dolphins trading Jalen Ramsey told me that the Steelers want Tyreek. And I scoffed when this guy first told me that the Steelers want Jalen Ramsey, and that was back in April. So I'm taking this a little more seriously.
I didn't know all that when first reacting to the Tyreek Hill Steelers trade rumors. I thought Florio was just throwing shit out there in his article, was firing the flames, was throwing out speculation. And that's why I reacted the way that I did. I'm like, bro, why do we got to bring up a big-name receiver and Steelers trade rumors after our offense just had a ton of success in week 1 and Calvin Austin was looking like a stud and it felt like the offense had chemistry and we were all in accord? Why do we got to do this? Week 1, just give it some time before we do all this stuff. Like I don't like I didn't like that. If it came to just throwing out speculation, throwing out rumors, throwing shit at a wall just because. But he's saying here, this is like legit source. This is coming from the guy that said Jalen Ramsey was going to be a Steeler. So I guess now this should be taken seriously. And if you're talking about adding Tyreek Hill to the Steelers offense, that would go hand in hand with being all in 2025. Make no doubt about it. If we're talking about turning over every stone, making sure we have insurance at all these different positions, and we just added to the safety room. We have 4 quality starting safeties right now once Deshaun Elliott gets back healthy. Why can't we do something similar to the wide receiver room? Why can't we add a Tyreek Hill if available? DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Austin becomes your 3. Jonnu Smith, Freiermuth at tight end, Rodgers throwing them the football. That's a pretty damn good offense. And I don't think it would – actually, I don't know how much it would cost to get Tyreek Hill. I don't know exactly what the trade timeline is for Tyreek Hill right now anyway because of the off the field, the legal issues with his ex-wife accusing him of some stuff. But he denies it, and that's why we live in America. We got to let the due process play out, let the legal process play out. NFL is even investigating it in their own right. It's part of their policy. So that still all needs to take place. So there's definitely not going to be a trade happening anytime soon. But the fact that Florio said that the Steelers want Tyreek Hill, and this is from the same guy that sourced the Jalen Ramsey to Steelers stuff, means that Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, they probably got some serious interest, and there's a decent chance it happens if Tyreek Hill gets cleared. If he doesn't get cleared, then, I mean, he's going to be suspended. He might not even be playing in the league for the rest of the season. So this will all be a moot point. But if he gets cleared and he's cleared before the trade deadline, he's not suspended or anything, depending on what the Steelers' offense looks like, this could be a real conversation. It definitely could be. Even if the Steelers' offense looks good. As I said, we've made no qualms about just adding pieces, adding depth, adding names, adding quality players, just sometimes for the sake of adding quality players. Because we're all in for 2025. You have this window with Aaron Rodgers, and you're like, why not? And if there's a comparison, we've made the comparison of this Rodgers Steelers season to the Brady Bucs season. Look at what their offense looked like. They had AB as their third receiver. They had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, Gronkowski, Fournette. He had a ton of weapons that he was throwing to. I mean, sometimes in excess. Scotty Miller was like his 5th receiver. So this would be that same type of vibe. If we wanted to trade for Tyreek Hill, we don't need him that bad, but why the hell not? If anything, the reason to trade for Tyreek Hill, one of the reasons would be to keep him away from the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or the Chargers. Seriously. Because if Tyreek Hill goes to the Chiefs and we're talking about competing in the AFC, that helps them a lot. If we get him, that helps us, and none of those other teams get him. So something else to think about when discussing this Tyreek Hill potential trade. Again, it's not happening anytime soon, but we didn't know, like, Steelers were really looking into this and are actually trying to make it happen, or were trying to make it happen. Florio did say that he got this information before some of this off-the-field stuff popped up yesterday. And obviously, no one condones what Tyreek's being accused of. That's all it is right now, accusation. Let the legal process play out. Let the NFL do their investigations and then see what happens. But it does change probably Omar Khan in the Steelers' interest right now. Like, there's nothing that can really be done anyway. But yeah, I don't think there's any rush either with how the Steelers' offense looked with Calvin Austin and us putting up 34 points in week 1. But this is something to make note of as the season continues on. The first time I heard it, I just was like, man, this is just Florio throwing shit out there. Nothing to really take serious right now. Sure, it could be a fit down the line, but bro, we just had a really nice week 1 offensive output. Calvin Austin looked good. Can we just enjoy that for a second? Like, that was my vibe. With it. That's why I said what I said. But yeah, don't get me wrong. You're talking on the field, Tyreek Hill definitely helps us be Super Bowl contenders even more. No doubt about it. Now let's get to this week 2 preview. Steelers, Seahawks. And I think I gave you guys my 3 keys to the Steelers' victory last week whenever we're facing off against the Jets. And I promise I'm not being lazy, but it's pretty much the same 3 keys for this week. Now, there's different caveats, little nuances, little intricacies that differ between teams, but it's kind of the same thing, bro. It's honestly probably going to be the same thing for the whole freaking year, too. Defense, we got to sell out to stop the run. On offense, Aaron Rodgers, play like Aaron Rodgers, be elite. And O-line, block for Aaron Rodgers. Not that complicated. It's really not. But why it makes sense again for this week is if you look at Seattle's offense, I'll start with our defense and why we got to sell out to stop the run. Sam Darnold ain't Viking Sam Darnold. I think he's more Jet Sam Darnold in this system without Kevin O'Connell, without Justin Jefferson, without Jordan Addison. He ain't the same. If you look at last week, he struggled. I mean, not too much. It wasn't like he was seeing ghosts, like from the bad days of when he was with the Jets, like the bad days. But he wasn't looking like Viking Sam Darnold. So I'm not that concerned about him cooking us, especially with the offensive weapons he has in the passing game. After JSN, it's really no one. Look at their roster. It's a bunch of no-names and Wash Cooper Kupp. But they do have a nice tandem of running backs with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So to put it simply, stop the run and make Sam Darnold and JSN beat us. And that's it. That's really it. And I have more faith in that happening than what took place last week against the Jets. I think this is a better matchup for us to do that with Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and JSN versus what we saw Fields and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall do. I wouldn't have thought that going into week 1. I would have said Seahawks matchup's probably a little bit tougher than the Jets, but after seeing what the Jets did, and we still got out of the stadium with a win, and we looked as bad as we did, like, I think this is just an easier matchup for us. Sam Darnold is no threat really to run with his legs. I don't think he's going to be throwing as good of passes as Justin Fields either. Garrett Wilson is a much better receiver. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say much better receiver than JSN. I think he's more dynamic. But even Breece Hall versus like Kenneth Walker, that's probably a wash. But Justin Fields was really the catalyst for that Jets offense, and I don't think Sam Darnold, and we know the importance of the quarterback position, I don't think Sam Darnold is going to be holding a candle to what Justin Fields did against us last week. That's my guess. So we should have a better time stopping the run because Sam Darnold's legs aren't really going to be a part of that. It's just going to be stopping traditional runs with running backs for the most part. And we'll see how we do with that, because even last week when Fields wasn't doing read options, we were struggling with stretch plays. That's my thoughts on the Steelers defense versus the Seahawks offense. Same thing. Just sell out to stop the run, make Sam Darnold beat us, and we shouldn't have any issues. And we should be able to accomplish it at a better clip than what we did week 1 against the Jets, I would think. Now, to offense, yeah, it's same thing. Pretty simple. Offensive line. Keep Rodgers upright. Keep him comfortable. Keep him healthy. Don't let him get hit. And open up some running lanes. We had a tough time doing that against the Jets last week, but I think this should be an easier matchup against the Seahawks defense, because their claim to fame is the secondary, and I honestly think their secondary is a little bit overrated right now, because they went up against Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense that was missing Juan Jennings. He gets hurt last game. George Kittle gets hurt. They don't have Brandon Ayuk out there, and they're making it seem like Seahawks secondary is the best in the league because they got a couple picks off Brock Purdy. It's like, all right, let's wait and see, because I did see Brock Purdy make some plays with the receivers that he did have out there and beat the Seattle secondary. So I think it'll be interesting to see what DK Metcalf and company do with Aaron Rodgers this week. It's not something to worry about. I think they do have a good secondary on paper, but they're going to be missing their first-round rookie and Nick Emanwari. Looks like he's going to be out potentially for multiple weeks. I don't think there's a chance he plays in this one coming up. And then Devin Witherspoon was on the injury report, so you got to wait and see for that as well. But going back to the offensive line and generating some push up front against Seattle's front seven, I don't think Seattle's front seven, let me put it to you this way. I think on the interior, they have Leonard Williams, and then they have the first-round pick from a couple years ago, Byron Murphy. That's lethal. Their edge rushers aren't anywhere close to what the Jets had in Will McDonald. I mean, Boy Mafe and DeMarcus Lawrence. When's the last time DeMarcus Lawrence has been good? I think that's an easier matchup for our tackles in Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. But on the interior, Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, they could pose some problems, but I think we're well equipped with Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, and Mason McCormick. Mason McCormick's coming off a really good game. We know Zach Frazier, he's a Pro Bowl center, should make a Pro Bowl this year. And Seumalo, the old veteran, it doesn't look like he's as good in the run blocking these days with moving and getting in space, but I just think that's because he's a little bit older, not as fast as what he once was. But in terms of pass blocking, not as concerned with Seumalo there. So I think we'll do a decent job in the interior, but that would be my main concern, actually, with the Seattle front seven and who we got to watch for. It's that interior defensive line as opposed to the edge rushers. Now, just out of sheer looking at what Broderick Jones did last week, and even Fautanu had some hiccups, yeah, maybe they let those guys win. Maybe they let an older DeMarcus Lawrence or a Boy Mafe win because they're not as buttoned up as what they need to be. But as I said, this is an easier matchup for them, and this is a good test, a good test, or a good way for them to get back on track here and let week one be in the past. Rodgers says he has faith in Broderick.
I really like Brod. I got to know him during training camp, and I like what he's about. I like his attitude. He's a genuinely positive guy, and I got a lot of confidence in him watching my back.
Broderick says he has faith in himself.
I never lost confidence in myself. Everything's not going to always be perfect, but at the end of the day, it's my job to protect Aaron, and I didn't do that. So, moving forward throughout the season, I got to do that.
So we'll see what happens. I think we win. I think we smoke them, actually. Smoke them as in, we'll go like 24-10. The game's in control whole way through. DK gets yards, revenge game against Seattle's secondary. I think Roman Wilson, I called it in the first week, didn't happen. I think Roman Wilson gets a couple catches in this one. Defense, Jabril Peppers making his debut. Wouldn't mind a splash play from him. I could see us just doing something completely different on offense. It looked like a fair amount different than what it did week one. Like Darnell Washington catches a touchdown. Maybe Muth goes for like 5 for 50 Caleb Johnson gets some work. Maybe he goes for 5 carries, like 25, 30 yards. Who else? Yeah, no, I think that's what I mean. I think this offense could be so diverse and multifaceted that we're not going to know exactly what's going to happen on a week-to-week basis. Like, I think DK is always going to get his, but after that, who knows? I think Jaylen Warren's going to always have a certain rule where he'll at least get 5 to 10 carries, 2 or 3 catches. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, this week's touchdown could go to Connor Hayward instead of like Ben Skoranek or Jonnu Smith. Could go to Roman Wilson. Could go to Scotty Miller. Would anyone be surprised? I wouldn't. Because we're only 1 week in with the whole Rodgers, Arthur Smith dynamic and all these new pieces on offense. Who knows what it could be. I think it's going to do well, though. I think it's going to do well. It seems like we know what we're doing. We're keeping things not stale. We're being unpredictable, which is nice. And you saw how the offense moved last week in a very efficient manner, too, because you look at the time of possession. I mentioned it in one of my other videos. We didn't have the ball that much, but we still made hay when we had it. 34 points, man. So that's it for this show. Let me know your thoughts on all the topics discussed. What do you think the Steelers are going to do in this game? Give me your bold predictions down in the comments. Stay chilling. Peace.